Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
We are here with a new It's Not Just You podcast episode.
Of course we are.
And today we are trying to work out what we should be talking about at the start of these podcast episodes.
Yes. So I guess the first question is, do you like this chat at the start of the episode?
We have asked this before.
Some people I think are more of the, just get on with it.
Yes.
Some people like to hear about stories from the week, random ramblings is what I'll call it. But could we use this slot in a more intentional way? Is the question.
Productive way.
Is there stuff you want to know?
Yeah. I guess it's if you like the chat at the start, is there something specific you want us to chat about?
Yeah.
Basically, we were just going down a rabbit hole of like, oh, should we ask each other, I don't know, a random question on the spot? Or should we tell you guys a weird, iconic story from our friendship? Or should we chat about, I don't know, what we're thinking about? So would be intrigued to know.
I've got an idea just now.
Oh, wow. Go on.
Kind of like, and it's not just you, but the just a random version.
Yes.
And I have got one if you just want to hear one quickly.
Okay, go on.
It's not just you that like takes a shower off the shower.
Oh my days.
What would you call that? The shower stand?
Head. No, the shower. You take the shower head off the.
Yeah, off the what?
Off the
holder.
Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Handheld
shower. It's not just you loves a handheld shower.
Which until probably about a year ago, didn't realise that was like a rare thing for everyone, for people to do.
Yeah, Soph had this moment with me and our old housemates where she, I don't know, it somehow got brought up that she takes the shower head off and we were all like, what? And then it was like, yeah, every shower she takes the shower head off, whereas everyone else just stands under the shower. So what do you guys do? We should put up a poll.
Yeah.
I'd be so intrigued, like how many people take it off?
Isn't it crazy the stuff that to you is just so normal until you have a conversation? Because also, because to you it's normal, why would I ever ask, oh guys, what do you like do in the shower in terms of do you take it off? Like, because you're like, well, obviously everyone takes it off. And then you find out that everyone doesn't and you're like, my whole life's a lie. Why wouldn't you take it off though?
Because they're just like standing underneath it.
But what about
No, because when you're doing that, I remember saying with our housemates, if you're handheld, so like when you're showering your leg, your back's cold. Whereas like when you're just standing under the shower, the water goes to all parts of your body.
Okay, this is my method. It's like a bit of both. Just like a bit of, I don't know why I'm calling it handheld. A bit of handheld, put it back on. And then when I'm like washing, it's on the thing.
So do you use it to rinse?
But to rinse I would
off?
like
Right.
A bit like a dog. That's what I envision, like a dog in the...
But what? I like...
Because it feels nice to like... When the water's like up there, it's like I can't feel the like nice feeling of like the water. This is sounding weird now. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's crack on with the episode.
Okay, yeah. Let's go into this week's episode. Today we're discussing. Why don't you intro this episode?
No, you should.
No, it's your speciality. Well, not speciality, but this episode is going to be focused on Soph's experience because it is
not just you that's never had a boyfriend.
Woo!
Guys, I know it gets referenced in pretty much every podcast episode. So we thought, let's just give the people what they want.
Let's tackle it
the full
straight
story.
On.
And we thought we'd take a bit of a different approach where this is going to be more of a Rach. Thank you there. She's just adjusting my mic. Rach interviewing me because she has had a boyfriend. So
yes,
it is just me
we've realized
in this scenario.
There are some, it's not just you topics that are particularly relevant to one of us, i.e. I would say the whole concept of never having had a boyfriend is a really good, it's not just you topic, because there are a lot of people out there who haven't and it's not spoken about loads. So we want to talk about it, but obviously in this instance, well, I have, so I can't relate. And then there are other things that I've experienced where you can't relate. Is that the right word?
Having a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Just for example.
Yeah, but even that, like the connotations of like, oh, it's bad that you haven't. we're going to unpack that
disgusting.
today. We're going to tackle that head on.
We are.
So we thought we might do it a bit more like
interview style.
Yeah, interview style, or just like this is going to be largely Soph sharing her experience.
So if you don't like me, then this isn't the episode for you. If you're more of a Rach fan.
I think at this point, most people are a Youve fan. Okay.
Don't say that. I've just realised what you said there.
Let's kick off with...
Just going to have a sip of my smoothie.
Oh, okay.
Just to quench the thirst.
Quench the thirst. Okay, so I think we should start in the most obvious place, which is, okay, you've not had a boyfriend. Why not? Has that been an intentional decision? Has that been you've just not met the right person? Or has that been somewhere in between? Why has Sophie Crude, how old are you?
I'm 24.
24.
25 in a couple of months.
25 in a couple of months, hasn't been in a relationship. Tell us why. The people want to know that. Why such a stunning, beautiful 10 out of 10 hasn't dated anyone.
I know. It's so hard to believe, isn't it? When I was 10, I made a vow.
My mum just told me I could never have one, so here we are.
I made an oath, and that oath cannot be broken. So, where do we begin? Why haven't I had a boyfriend? I think it's a combination of two things. Why haven't I had a boyfriend? There's like the side of things where it's like, I don't know, there's been people that have liked me or asked me out and I've not, it's the feelings haven't been mutual. And then there's been people that I have liked and they haven't liked me. So it's kind of, I'd say that's in reality probably just the main reason.
So the main reason is you've not met someone that, you've not come across someone that you want to date who wants to date you, basically.
Yeah, I'd say
you've just not met the right person.
I'd say that's a big part of it. And then I would also say other kind of side elements have been things like times where I actually just haven't been that bothered about it, in terms of it's not been like a focus of my attention. I've not been putting loads of energy into trying to get a boyfriend, like whatever that would look like, putting yourself out there in different ways. So that's probably been a reason as well, just not at times been that fussed. Like there's definitely been times where it has been on my mind or something that I have wanted, but there's also been times where I think I've just been happy with being single and happy with where I'm at and not having a boyfriend. And then I think there's also, I guess the main thing is just probably just feeling like I've just not really met anyone that I'm like, I'd be willing to, not be single, give up all the stuff that comes with being single and the stuff that is great in my life that inevitably you do have to sacrifice when you get into a relationship. I've not met anyone who also likes me back that I would be like willing to do that for.
Yeah. And that sounds like quite a healthy place of being single, because I think sometimes when you're single, it's very easy to be in the headspace. Like I think we've all been there of, I just want a boyfriend, but actually to be in a headspace where you're like, can actually recognize the positives of being single and be like, this will actually like, I have to consider whether or not I want to give that up by dating someone is quite a, I don't know, maybe not a common view of singleness.
Yeah. And I would definitely say that is a newer perspective of like the last couple of years. When I'm thinking back to, 15, 16-year-old Soph, I think some of that was there in terms of I definitely, if I'm being honest, I was definitely looking for that male attention, male affirmation, wanted to be told that I was pretty by a guy, wanted them to think I was attractive. But there was always kind of something that just knew, as much as I want that, it's then a whole other step to make someone my boyfriend.
Yeah.
So even if, like, let's be honest, like you could not really like someone that much, but still appreciate the fact that, you think I'm good looking or whatever. I think for me, I always was quite like, oh, but I don't know, having a boyfriend feels like quite a big commitment.
Yeah.
And so
like quite a big deal.
I wouldn't want that to just be anyone.
Yes.
But then you kind of are then caught in this weird middle ground of that feeling of, oh, I wouldn't just want it to be anyone, but also still actually wanting the attention and some of the parts that come with maybe what would be involved in being in a relationship. But yeah.
Do you feel like now, because you haven't had a boyfriend, do you think over the years it's become almost like a bigger and a bigger deal?
I think so, yeah.
In terms of now you're kind of like flip, like I've not had a boyfriend for like 25 years. So like to suddenly, do you know what I mean?
I mean, 25 years is like,
well, no,
so
okay, no.
I'm not going to have a boyfriend, I'm 1. Let's say from 18.
I didn't mean that.
Let's go from like 16. So like.
Yeah. But as in, what I mean is over the years
nearly
from where
10
you
years.
could have dated,
okay.
You haven't. So now does it feel like quite a high stakes?
Yeah, like I'd say 100%. I think because it's just totally unknown territory. Like all the stuff that comes with a relationship, even, so obviously there's the vulnerability of being in a relationship and how much you have to give of yourself to a person and let them in on who you are and all these parts of your life. There's that. But then there's also all the other things of like them becoming a part of your wider family and friendship groups and, you know, kind of being linked with this person and then potentially having to think, oh, I might actually also spend the rest of my life with you.
Yeah.
Do I want that? Like, I just think there's so many things that you would never have to really navigate. You can't really, until you've done it, you can't like really practice it in other ways, can you? Do you know what I mean? Like that level of commitment and involvement in your life of what it would be like having.
But I think that's also just something, as you grow older and you become more mature, you can actually think those things through rationally. Whereas like, let's say you got a boyfriend when you were 16 because there was a guy that you really fancied and they fancied you. Your mind doesn't even necessarily go to like thinking the future through or anything. You just do it.
Yeah.
But I can see, therefore, if you haven't, and then when you're actually older and you're a more rational human and you've just more mature and can think more clearly, like it then makes sense why it's then like, oh, this feels like a big decision.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because even when I think like I don't think before being in a relationship or whatever, I really kind of thought through everything before I got into it. Whereas now, like I'm 25 or going to be 25 next year. Well, so I'm 24.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
I would think more.
Yeah. But I do think as well, there's an element of when you're at school, even with the whole family thing, it's like your parents probably know a lot of the people that you're at school with or in your friendship groups. You're living at home. You know, your circle of friends is way smaller. So most of your friends are probably at school. So if there was a boy that you liked who was at your school, they'd all know him. Whereas now it just feels like this way more complicated thing in my head of like, if I met someone, like I live in Birmingham and my parents live in Nottingham, it's then going to have to be a whole like introductory process. Yes. And then like all my friends that are, again, from back home, it's like, oh, I need to introduce him to this group of friends. And then like that person that lives there and that person that lives there. And like, rather than it just being like, oh, we go to school together and everyone knows everyone because we're in like a bit of a tighter network of people. I don't know. It just, to me, I don't know why, but that's the thing that just kind of like feels really big.
Yeah, it's almost just like CBA.
Yeah.
Like I can't be bothered. But I guess if you were with the right person and it would get to a point where you're like, oh, I want my friends to meet him.
Yeah, of course.
But I think when you're not, you're just like, that just sounds like so much effort, which I think is quite a general thing anyway, just with relationships where until it's with the right person, it's like, I can't bother to do that. But yeah, I think, so where you're saying like, oh, you don't feel like you've met someone that you would want to date, is that, do you think like the whole standard side of things and kind of, obviously there are certain things that you would love for your boyfriend to be like. Do you feel like you've ever had too high standards or like, what's your opinions on that?
Just standards in general.
Well, I just think some people would obviously be like, oh, Soph, like your standards are too high. you know, there are these great guys that have shown interest, like, come on, just date them. And it's kind of like, right, like, what do you think there are times where your standards have been too high, or is it just a thing of like, no, I know what I want and these people aren't it?
No, I don't think my standards are too high. And
yeah,
I think,
you tell them.
But I was literally saying to Rachel before this, I have a bit of a opinion. Well, my opinion on all of this is that you can set your standards as high as you want. So you could have 100 points that you want and you want them to tick every single one of them. I would say if you want every single thing and that's really important to you, then that's okay. But you also have to be okay with the fact that you might never meet someone that is going to tick 100 out of 100 boxes.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm very much at peace with my or it's not even standards, like, because that makes it feel like some people are of a lower standard than another person. No,
it's more like just specifics of things you're looking for.
The stuff that I want in a person, I'm quite at peace with the fact that I could never meet someone that, you know, meets all of those requirements, or I could meet someone that meets those requirements and they might not like me back, but that's not then a reason for me to get rid of some of them because, oh, okay, I need to just realize that that's not going to work. Like, I need to, I think for me, it's like those things, some of those things are really important. And yeah, there's always compromise and there's always stuff that, you know, might change over time. But I just think if you're happy to kind of come to terms with the fact that
you could be single,
yeah, in like, I don't know, forever, if you have these requirements and you're not meeting people that are fitting them, then I don't really see anything wrong with that.
Well, ultimately,
it's more just if you're having these loads of standards, but if in reality you're like, oh, but I want to find a boyfriend in the next 2 weeks, well,
that's not going to happen.
That's probably not going to happen.
It's ultimately the bigger question of like, are you going to prioritize being with someone because you've always wanted to be in a relationship and have a boyfriend or get married, which isn't a wrong or a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Or are you going to prioritize like essentially being single unless someone does fulfill all the things that you would really want, and you're like happy to be single and you're happy to never date, which I would say is more rare, but the side that you err on.
Yeah.
So it is more rare.
Yeah. And I also just want to say, like, I don't think that like one is better than the other in that sense. Because I think there's some people that, they really want to be in a relationship, have a family, have kids.
They like operate better in a relationship.
And that is, for me, as long as you're not doing that out of fear or like insecurity, then I don't see anything wrong with that. No. And actually, I really think that it's a beautiful thing when two people come together and it's like they have chosen to love each other and chosen to compromise and chosen to like look past things because they're going to commit to one another. I think that's amazing. I think that's also a massive sacrifice and really difficult to do. So yeah, I definitely don't think like that's the wrong thing and the right thing is to like, you should have all these requirements and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm more just saying that's my perspective of, I'm more on the side of these are the things I want. If I don't find anyone that has them, okay. If I do, great. And that's because
you are happy and secure being single. And it's not to say that you do sometimes have days where you're like, oh, I'd love to have a boyfriend.
100%.
But on the whole, you are probably abnormally happy to be single in our kind of culture and generation.
Yeah, but I also would say that it's not like, it's definitely not this thing of, oh, there's all these people that are trying to go out with me and I'm just saying no. Like there's been people that I've liked and they haven't liked me back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not just,
there are people
it's not like the ball is in my court and I'm just gonna, it's like, no, I've had times I'm like, no, I would want to date this person.
And they've fulfilled the criteria.
Yeah. And I'm like, and it hasn't worked out for whatever reason or they haven't liked me back. And so I don't want it to come across with this thing like, yes, I just
pieing off boys left, right, and center.
Line them up, you know, as we've all heard in our rejection episode. I've got a few stories in them about.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not this thing of like me just, you know, all these pictures up on my wall. Like, no, No.
No, you're not good enough. No, you're not good enough.
That is 100% not the case.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Go on.
I'm quite enjoying this interview, everyone. How do you find saying to people, I haven't had a boyfriend? Because we were talking earlier, you know, sometimes it's just an assumption that people make that, oh, you have probably dated at this point, or you've been in a relationship, even though a lot of people haven't. And we were saying, like, you know, do you ever find that embarrassing to have to say no? Or do you kind of just back it?
Yeah. It's, for me, if there was like a graph, it's like, so like you've got, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm doing with my hand. You've got here, which is like, maybe I'm 12, 13, and not everyone's had a boyfriend anyway. So saying you haven't had a boyfriend is like, cool. Yeah. Like you're literally like 13. Not many people have.
I know where you're going with
then
this.
You get into like probably 14, 15. Let's say between the ages of 15 and 21, we're going down into like embarrassed.
Okay.
Of like, I don't know, 18, you just got to uni. It's like, oh, you know, my ex-boyfriend, da-da-da. And you're just like, I've never had a boyfriend. Like, and that for me was probably between the ages of like, 15 and 21. I think that's maybe not 21, let's say 20. I think I would have found it more embarrassing to say I've not had a boyfriend. And I feel like now I actually just quite enjoy it.
Have you rode out the other side?
Yeah, because I just think, for me, I work with a lot of young people. I'm a youth worker, so I'm having conversations with kind of, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls most days. And I just love, you know, their whole life is revolved around boys. Their whole life is revolved around who's dating who and, you know, being in a relationship, boyfriends. And so I quite enjoy, and, you know, some of them are in, I don't know, okay relationships. A lot of them are just not great, where you're just like, oh gosh, this is just, a recipe for disaster, these two people coming together. And so you're kind of trying to teach them, like, you know, having a boyfriend is not the be all and end all.
Yes.
There's more to you than just being in a relationship. So I quite enjoy having these conversations with them and going, oh, well, I've never had a boyfriend. And they're like, what? And you're like, yeah. 24 and I've never had a boyfriend. And I'm not dead.
And I'm doing fine.
And look at me, I'm thriving.
Yeah. I'm not just doing fine. I'm thriving, baby.
But I just quite enjoy it, because I think you get to the point where it's almost so out of kind of the norm. No, maybe that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just so unexpected, maybe, or it's people just wouldn't necessarily think, oh, 24-year-old not had a boyfriend, which is, I don't know. Is that right?
I think, yeah.
Anyway, but I quite like almost hitting them with the like, I haven't. And they're like, oh, what?
And I think it's basically because you're through that insecure stage of where, when you are younger, like you say, whatever your age bracket was, like up until 21, it is, the novelty is still there of everyone's getting their first boyfriend, and it becomes part of who they are. And I think when it's new, you then really feel when you've not had that, or whereas then I just think the older you get, it's like, don't care, also really. People don't really care as much generally. The people your age, it's kind of like cool. Yeah. I really noticed that when I got to uni, just generally in terms of things that really mattered at school and people would judge you for, or like, you know, make fun of you for it. At uni, it's like there's so many people with different views, different life experiences, different backgrounds, that doesn't really matter. Yeah. And I do just think that, as much as I just, again, want to kind of disclaimer, as much as in this episode we're, you know, talking about being single and how, I guess for me, it's been a bit of a journey, and I've maybe come out more on the side of it's okay and it's fine. I do think that I just wanted to say there's still 100% days where I'm like, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with me? Yeah. Like, I'm ugly, I'm not like worth, you know, anyone liking. Like all those kind of, which I would say are lies. Like they're lies that, you know, kind of can creep into your thinking and your brain. And I just think that
I would never want it to come across this like I have completed like, you know, the journey of becoming, you know,
I don't care.
At peace and secure with being single, because there's definitely still so many kind of moments or days where thoughts like that will come into my mind, and I will think, oh, what's wrong with me? Is it because I don't look like this? Is it because my personality is like this, or I'm not girly enough, or I don't know, whatever kind of, and it'll be different for everyone, reasons that they give themselves as to why they haven't had a boyfriend. But I don't know. Yeah. I just wouldn't want it to come across that I'm like, I don't care at all.
Yeah. And what do you kind of do when on those days? Like, do you just let yourself feel it, or like how do you kind of rationalize it or pull yourself out of that?
I think it's a combination, isn't it, of like acknowledging your feelings and not trying to just brush them away and be like, no, like that's like, I think sometimes you have to let thoughts and feelings surface to be able to unpack them and process why have I started thinking this? Do you know what I mean? And not just go, no, shut it down. I mean, maybe there are times and days where that is the best response, but I do think it's worth sometimes just letting the feelings come and then just sitting with them for a bit and just tracking back why, like where have I got this thought from? Why do I believe this? And I do think, you know, we spoke about this in another episode around like, you know, beauty standards and what society shows you. And even just for me, it's like, I can't remember the last film I watched that didn't have some sort of romantic plot line, or like, it's so pushed, isn't it? Like in every sphere of life, media, TV, film, conversations. It's, I mean, even for me, I think something that I've really, I was going to say really struggled with, that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, struggled with in the past, is sometimes feeling like to have anything worth bringing in a conversation that people care about, it has to be about a boy
oh,
or
that's
like,
so true.
do you know what I mean? Where I just see sometimes the level of interest that people take when you can go, so I went on a date, or so like I'm talking to this boy, and it's literally like immediate, like tell me everything, and I'm going to text you every day to ask for an update. And when that's maybe not like a main part of your life, I think I've felt sometimes like, oh, I don't know, am I just like a boring person that people don't really want to talk to because there's not interesting stuff going on with a boy? And I think that is just because like the whole time we're fed, you know, relationships that are fun and exciting, and that's what then seeps into conversations and friendships and so I can't remember what the question was. How do you deal with those thoughts? Yeah. I think just trying to just actually work through them and uncover what is the kind of bigger fear and belief that's kind of lying under all of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And also I think, like you said at the start, just acknowledging some of those thoughts just aren't true. Like, you're not ugly. There's nothing wrong with you. And like even just rationalizing some of those things of like, sometimes probably even just thinking, you know, like you just have to keep coming back to the thing of I've not met the right person, in terms of it's not that there's these big issues. Like I'm just thinking for someone like listening to this who just doesn't understand what's wrong with them. It's like, it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just you might not have met someone that you gel with in that exact way of wanting to date.
Yeah. And I also think that sometimes you need the people around you to speak truth over you, and there'll be days where you can kind of catch those thoughts yourself and, you know, work through it on your own. But there'll probably be days where you need to go to a friend and go, do you know what? I've realised I've been believing all this stuff. Can you just almost just tell me like it's not true? And even I've had it where there's been lies and thoughts that have been circling around in my mind that you just become so accustomed to and are so kind of ingrained in your thinking that you don't really give them a second thought. They're just there. And then I've had it where I've then taken those thoughts into a conversation with someone and said them out loud. And literally as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I've been thinking that. Or as you're saying that, you're like, oh yeah, that's been in my brain for like the last 6 months and I've just been letting it go around. And I think sometimes speaking, even just literally saying it out loud, even just in a room on your own, like saying it out loud, I believe this about myself, you can almost hear just, oh my gosh, that's a massive lie. That is just not true. That is.
And also like if a friend had said that to you, what would your response be? Where sometimes it's just easy to be harsh on yourself. And it's like, well, no, if a friend came to me and said they were believing that about themselves, I'd be like, that's just not the truth. And it's horrible that you think that. And it's being like, oh yeah, like it's the same for when I'm thinking stuff about myself.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, final question to wrap up. The big question. Do you want a boyfriend? It's a tricky one.
Why are you asking?
Because I haven't. Can we welcome
candidate number 1
onto the podcast? Waiting in the wings.
I think it's not a definite yes and it's not a definite no.
Oh, for goodness sake. We wanted a yes or no.
I can't give you a yes or no. If it's a great person, I'd say, okay, longer answer. I don't want a boyfriend for the sake of having a boyfriend.
Yeah.
If a great person came along,
okay, yeah.
I'm not like gonna be like, goodbye, see you later. But I don't feel like I need a boyfriend for the sake of to say I have a boyfriend and I'm in a relationship and just the generic things that a boyfriend can offer. Like I don't feel like, oh, I'm lonely and so I want to have someone to watch a film with.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. That's Soph's boyfriend story, or
it's been a journey.
Non-boyfriend story. But I think there's some really good stuff in that, you know? If you're listening to this and you've never had a boyfriend, or maybe you have had boyfriends but you've got friends who haven't had boyfriends, maybe that just offered a perspective, some insight. You know, I thought you answered all those questions brilliantly.
Thanks, mate.
I feel like I'm a host on a chat show.
We'll get on to you next time.
Oh, will we? Right.
Yes, we will.
Any final words?
No.
Brilliant. All right, guys. Well, we will see you in our next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.